Hello, everyone. Ladislas Maurice of thewanderinginvestor.com. So today we'll be discussing a very useful service that I came across, which is remote US notarizations and US apostilles. And this isn't just a service for US people, but also for non-US people that need notarizations. So Jonathan and Will, we first met when I was just doing a viewing of my apartment post renovation in Medellin, Colombia. You guys are my tenants. We're having a short chat. And I asked you guys, what do you guys do? And then you explain your service. And I thought, wow, this is exactly the sort of service that some of my clients need. And then I actually tried your service out to notarize some documents remotely, and it worked flawlessly. So, can you please take us through the service that you offer for people?
Obviously, one of the biggest challenges, especially when you're living abroad, is getting documents notarized, apostilled from the US. And costly flights can and time obviously poses a challenge. We provide mobile notary services in the United States, but can also use electronic notarizations for anybody in the US, outside the US, and non-US citizens. What's great is we have a network of over 100,000 notaries in the country, and we can leverage the laws between different states where some states might not allow notarization of a non-US citizen, but other states do. And so we can use that network in those laws to fit whatever need our customers have based on their situation.
For US people, you cover every single state, correct?
Correct. That's right.
Because one of the biggest challenges my some of my US clients have is when they go overseas, they need some document apostilled, and then when
Mhm.
they check the process for their own state, often they have to go to some office and then they're flying around and it's complicated and it varies from state to state and they're confused. But essentially you take all the friction out of this process.
That's right. And like I was saying, we have that network of 100,000 notaries. And so we can also leverage the network to do the footwork for you. So whether that be running into those state offices, grabbing your documents, going to actually go and get them apostilled, that way they can essentially act on your behalf and do that without you having to ever come to the United States.
And yeah, and I was just kind of piggyback on what Jonathan was saying is we were often getting calls from clients who were going to the consulate to get a notarization. Sometimes that might be all the way across the country, or they were actually purchasing a flight to come all the way back to the United States while still trying to figure out the process. So the notarization and apostille process is not the easiest to figure out. Believe you me, we had to kind of bump our heads around to figure out it as well, but we understand it, and so we can save people that trip from having to come back to the United States.
And how do you operate specifically for FBI background checks? Because that's often a particularly problematic for US people. They feel that they need to go back to the US to get the FBI report and to then get it apostilled locally. What solution do you offer there?
Yeah, so the FBI report is interesting. So normally I think people are used to that fingerprint scanning machine, right? With those have to be done in the US because you can't, the FBI doesn't allow for information to be digitally transmitted from outside of the US into the US. And so there are some cases where you could do the scan from outside the US, but then you'd have to get it printed on a fingerprint card and then mailed into the FBI. An option that we provide is we actually help you through with the ink printing of your cards if you're outside the US. And we have a special person with the FBI who we can mail your prints to them. They convert that ink print digitally into a digital print and then submit it from within the United States to the FBI. And so in that way, we're able to get the FBI report in 24 hours from the time that we receive it versus having to mail it into West Virginia's FBI office. And it takes 4 to 6 weeks for them to give you an FBI report back.
This is amazing because I have American friends and they were in situations where they needed an FBI background check and they couldn't get it on time. It messed up their whole plans. It cost them thousands of dollars in lost flights, weeks of delays, and this and that. And you guys can essentially solve this for a few $100s.
And what we've noticed is that the countries have become more and more strict over time. So countries that may not have allowed or may have not required FBI background checks are now starting to require those FBI background checks. In addition, there were kind of workarounds, or I guess for lack of a better term, shortcuts that you could use back in the day when COVID was more prevalent. These countries are saying, hey, all of those restrictions or all of those things that we're allowing to happen before, we're going to put an axe on that. And then now things need to go the 100% correct way. So it's really important the fact that we have all of these agents in all these different states, because we make sure that we do it the way in which the documents are supposed to be completed, which is through the state in which it originated. And we find that this change has caused a lot of problems for a lot of Americans abroad.
Absolutely. People move overseas. They need an apostilled or notarized, depending on the country, copy of their birth certificate, of their marriage
Hmm.
certificate, of their even divorce certificate, sometimes of accounting details, of whatever letter of confirmation of assets. So it's when you go overseas, in 90% of cases, you will need a service like this.
Yeah, and I think a common misconception that people have when we talk to them about the apostille is a lot of people think, oh, it's just, a signature and stamp. It's essentially an international notarization, right? It's like simplicity, it is, but the thing is we can get an apostille on pretty much anything, but that doesn't mean that the recipient will accept it, because there are correct ways to do apostilles. You could have an apostille done and it's not correct. That's not the correct process. And so by the time you get it over to that international side, they're like, this isn't what we wanted. You have to go do this way. And so then you've just lost so much time and more money to try to do it like these other roundabout ways. So essentially what we're doing is we're trying to work with two different government entities, the US side that has their own compliance and process. And then also, is it acceptable for your receiving country, and making sure that it's going to be able to be used there.
Yeah, and even for non-US people, it's an interesting service. So for example, I'm not a US person. I'm not American, but I travel around all the time. Right now, as we're recording this, I'm in Mexico, and I had my brokerage account in Russia ask for some certified documents. And I asked them if they were comfortable with certified documents from Mexico, and they said yes, but then we need an official translation in Russia, blah, blah. So just added this whole layer of complexity. Then they said, oh, but if the notarization is in English, we accept English. So I
Interesting.
literally
Yeah.
just contacted you guys, sent you the document, and within 24 hours, I had PDF copies of the notarization, and that I sent to Russia, and they're fine with it. And
Perfect.
if I ever needed the hard copy, if they ask for it, you guys can just DHL it directly. And if the Russians become annoying and they say, "Oh, we want an apostille," you guys can then add an apostille on top of it. So even for non-US documents, it works.
That's right. Because it really is based on where the signature, where the official is, who the government official was. And so notaries are government officials, so are government officers. And for using a US notary, we would do the apostille notarization from the US.
Yeah.
And the document can be in any language. We can even notarize documents that are not in English and apostille them.
So very useful. Obviously, you want to check with like you said, the receiving party. If they're fine with it,
Mhm.
you're not going to apostille a German birth certificate in the US. That just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. So it's
Yeah.
really dependent on your particular situation, but oftentimes for banking, for brokerage accounts, for things like this, a US notarization works perfectly fine.
Copies of passports, copies of
Yeah, we can do
driver's
those.
license.
And even if it was a
Yeah,
copy of a foreign passport, it didn't even have to be a US
yeah,
passport. We can actually
Mhm.
notarize and apostille those, because we're doing is certifying a copy of it, right? That it's a true copy,
yeah.
wherever that document is. It's great. We enjoy having our customers call us and talk to us so that we can figure out what's going on, because we can create creative solutions, again, leveraging laws between different states and seeing ways that could actually work for your situation versus trying to figure
Can,
it out.
can you educate us with regards to e-apostilles? Because this is a new concept. Few people have heard of it. We're starting to see when we go into embassies and the like posters about e-apostilles, but no one quite understands how they work. And often there's a lot of government officials don't quite accept them yet. So please tell us about it.
Yeah, so the E-Apostille has actually been around since 2004. It's been around for a long time. And so the Hague Convention, which is that apostille convention who made the regulations for it, that's when they started it. Certain countries have been doing it, like Spain has it, Colombia has been doing it, but the US was slower to adopt it. But now it's like US is part of more in the forefront of getting them accepted. We've been part of a pilot program for the last couple of years on you're getting the e-apostilles, and also helping to educate the recipient and why it's a valid use. Based on the Hague's regulations, it's equal weight to a physical apostille. There is no one is better than the other. The only thing that, somebody might not accept an E-Apostille is that they're rejecting the underlying document, not the apostille itself, because the apostille is the one certificate that goes on the original document. If your recipient does not want a digital signature on like a power of attorney, they said, no, it has to be wet signed. And then that case, that is a valid reason for them to reject it, since, that, let's say you did an online notarization and then we put an E-Apostille on it, because E-Apostille is for digital documents. So we've been working with E-Apostilles for part of a pilot program for the last couple of years. An E-Apostille is equal in weight to a physical apostille. The Hague doesn't want there to be any difference between the two. And essentially, this is what an E-Apostille looks like. It is a fully digital document. It is digitally certified. This is the original. This can be shared many times to whoever you need. You can't really lose it as long as you have the file. And there's no international shipping needed since the document is fully digital.
So you cut out all the DHL, all the FedEx fees.
Yeah, there would be no
waste of
shipping
time.
and no risk of losing it. And it would, you can send that to your recipient same day, right?
How do they verify it?
There is a verification security measure here. So every E-Apostille has that blue certified bar. And then they also have a verification on a website. So you can go to the government entity who issued it, and it'll come with a verification number. The state will have who actually signed this document and all that matching information. So you would match those two. So if anything was differing, if there were different dates, that's how you would know that it's not the real one. Somebody altered it or falsified it. But with these documents, they can't be altered. And so this is why I had to take a screenshot of the Adobe, because I couldn't even redact the file.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is faster and more affordable.
Correct.
Gentlemen, look, thank you very much for your time. So there's an affiliate link below in the description. You can get in touch with William and Jonathan. I mean, you guys just get back to people really quickly, right? What's your target?
Yeah, so my sales team, the bare minimum, whenever somebody submits a form on our website, is to give them a call back within 5 minutes. But we aim to give a call back within 60 seconds. So you guys can call us out if it takes us any longer than that.
And that's US working hours?
So we're open from 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to 10 p.m. PST, and we're also open on the weekends as well, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.
All right, so I can speak for amazing service, eh?
I do want to mention too, though, that for Sundays, we are closing on Sundays for religious reasons, to have a day of Sabbath for our team, and being a Christian-centered business, that's something we wanted to have.
All right, so there's a link below. Jonathan, William, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Make sure to download my free ebook, 12 Mistakes to Avoid When Investing in International Real Estate, which you can find on my website, link below. And feel free to follow me on Instagram @TheWandering Investor. I look forward to hearing from you.